Good evening, folks. Red County Blue Nation. Stephen Roy, Jim McMahon. We're here tonight with Kit Shy. Kit, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. Nice use of the tasting room.
Yep. Well, one of these days that's kind of our storyline here is we're at the bar where a lot of this country was formed. So
Yep. Lots of discussion at the bar.
yeah, it seems like a couple libations always seem to open up the conversations.
Yep.
Kit, give us a little background, buddy. I can help a little bit. So you were a county commissioner here in Custer County. We're trying to kind of get an idea here of what the commissioner's duty is. First of all, can you kind of elaborate on that?
County commissioner duties are based on statutes and the Colorado Constitution. All of the big Western territories and states realized that they couldn't have central government from one location. Washington, D.C. It was just too big an area and people were too spread out. So counties grew up actually before statehood. Built usually around a personality of some sort, somebody who started the county going. A lot of times in the West, they were Civil War vets. Officers from the Civil War that came west and ended up in a position in a certain place and started thinking about boundaries for a county. And then, of course, when the statehood came, the states realized that the county already had some sort of organization together. So they would extend the state arm to that in terms of support and structure. And they created all the descriptions for all the different county offices at the state level. So all of the state functions that are at the state level are also on the county level. And county government is an arm of state government. So all the job descriptions, if you want to call it that, also could be called statute or constitutional obligations. They all came from the state. And they're in the Constitution.
And that would be the commissioners, the clerk, the treasurer, the assessor, the sheriff, and that's it, isn't
The
it?
coroner and the surveyor.
Coroner,
Surveyor.
got it.
The sheriff was important because some sort of law enforcement presence needed to be there in lieu of having troopers. So county sheriffs are the only elected law enforcement officers in the country. And the position that they hold in the county is very primary. It has a lot to do with being accountable to the people that serve. They're different than a police commissioner or FBI or any of those. Those are all appointed positions. Sheriffs are elected by the people that serve. So that was a very important office. Assessors, of course, collected the taxes and calculated the value of the taxes, property taxes, based on all the different criteria, the use of the land, the amount of it, size, what was being produced, that sort of thing. And then later on, commercial properties and residential property. The treasurer, of course, kept all the funds of the county, and they dispersed and paid all the bills based on the income of the county. The coroner, of course, we know what that function was. They were to make sure that there was a reasonable assessment made of people who passed. And coroner's inquest could be done on a suspicious death. And they also hold the position of being the only person that could arrest the sheriff. There's always checks and balances in the U.S. government at every level of it. So the sheriff couldn't just run off half-cocked and get crazy and start doing illegal things. The coroner could actually arrest the sheriff.
So in today's world, that's still the truth. That's still true. And then
That functions there.
what would that just out of curiosity for educational sake, what would that entail? Would he just say, he gets with the rest of the elected officials and they all tell him, well, we think that the sheriff's inadequate or whatever, and then is there some paperwork that they fill out? Or
probably not for any kind of malfeasance. They would have to be committing a crime. The sheriff would have.
I see. So actually catching him in a crime.
Right, it would most likely be directed by a judge.
I see.
It would be brought to the judge, and then the judge could
So
instruct the court.
I see.
So there's always another check and balance of protection for the sheriff as well.
Gotcha.
And then you have the county surveyor who handled boundary issues in the county, boundary disputes, surveyed the county's land, and acted as the collector of all of the land records, mapping and so forth, and assisted the assessor in the process of determining boundaries too, but mainly just the idea of boundaries.
And I guess I didn't introduce you as fully as I could have. So Kit is a lifelong surveyor, was run his own surveying business for many years up here.
That's my profession. That's my training.
And you were also the surveyor for the county.
I was
as
a
well.
county surveyor, which was an unpaid position for the first 12 years that I held the job. It became paid, I believe in 2004, it became paid. I was a commissioner at the time, but I was paid after I became county surveyor after I was commissioner. And the coroner was not a paid position until later on. And it was kind of a token amount. It wasn't a lot of money. If we actually functioned and did something as a surveyor, we were able to appoint deputies. And then the court would establish value for what we did. Be compensated for it. Mainly in this day and age, it's an advisor to the commissioner on boundary.
They don't have one at this point, do they?
No, they don't, and that's an interesting thing that it's like they're not missed if they're not there, but if they are there, they function really well. It's out of the 64 counties in the state of Colorado, I think there's only 30 of them that have the county surveyor. And as far as it being a funded position, I think there's only 3 that are actually funded with an office and crew and all that sort of thing, county level above what the state minimum requirement. As far as compensation.
Somebody that has a lot of work in front of them, these bigger counties with bigger.
Exactly. Yeah, there'd be more county work itself, and then some of the bigger counties have a county engineer. A lot of the bureaucracies at the state level are mirrored at the county level. Board of Health, the environmental people, that kind of different bureaucratic functions that are at the state level, they're mirrored at the county level. For many years, counties were just kind of left on their own to handle how to do all that stuff. Handle sanitation, public utilities, all that sort of stuff is just funded by private companies or counties came up with systems. Small counties like Custer, our rural county, the commissioners act in the capacity of used to until recently the health department. They function as the health department. Right. So people wear a lot of different hats here. They have, your person who's involved in planning and zoning may also be your county sanitary, small county like ours. So it's all a function of funding. How you afford to take on some of the tasks of government.
Well, and that kind of goes back into where we're eventually going to go with this conversation is, the funding of what is actually realistic and what's needed. And then sometimes, I know back when we were working on some of that stuff, sometimes the guy just couldn't afford it. And so it just went without, huh?
Yeah. Well, and there are certain things that frankly are kind of foisted on you by the federal government. After 9/11, the idea of having an Office of Emergency Management, that came down from the top. They helped the county to fund the position, but they required counties to have that position. So now and that office has grown to 2 people in a vehicle, and well, a little bit beyond, I think, what was actually anticipated. But there was a strong reaction of Homeland Security to when that agency was created at the federal level. They, of course, wanted to have people in every local area too. Answering to it. So, some of the things come as mandate. You hear the term unfunded mandate quite often. And when you're on the tail end of government, like towns, counties, and cities are, um, you feel the unfunded mandate. It's done. You may be required to accomplish something that isn't needed there.
Well, and does that kind of sound like the Justice Center at this point? I mean, we're still trying to dig to the bottom of what actually is mandated and why they think they need this Justice Center. And of course, one of the questions that I've had is if it is a mandate, why did we vote on it?
Well, some of those good things come from the state level. Because a lot of your judicial activities are in more than one county. You're going to have people that come from another area that have an expectation of more, shall we say, modern facilities than we have. Our courthouse was built in 1929 and then added on to in the early 70s. In fact, my father did a lot of work on that, the courthouse addition that's now where the actual courtroom is now.
I see.
So that was, there's not always a way to figure out how to fund it. And there are state funds that go into the judicial system that you can draw from to do things. And that's helped us, like with the heating system and some different things we did in our courthouse. But the ambitious nature of the Justice Center, that was the idea of combining all of the sheriff's facilities and the courts structure. And right now the sheriff is disjointed. I was never a big fan of it, a huge building being built just for that one purpose. But when I talked about us wearing a lot of different hats, we also share facilities in a lot of ways too. There's a lot of buildings and things that we could be utilized a bit better. I think that the crowding in the actual county government itself, the assessor and the treasurer and all of them, I think their situation of needing more space is probably more critical than the court itself. Now, the court has grown. We have a lot more days of court action here, but there was a lot of time that the courtroom itself sat empty, 20 days of the month, or 15 days of the month.
Right.
And they were active, 5 days a week. So, it didn't seem to be like that was exactly the wise place. The sheriff needs some help. That building is old.
What do you think, speaking about the sheriff, Kit, how do you, Steve, what's going on with now that, from my understanding, the reason why we've been having so much trouble with the sheriff's office is they couldn't afford 24-hour-a-day medical. And that's kind of.
For the jail?
For the jail.
For the inmates, yeah.
And that's kind of where they've taken that, and Fremont County actually takes care of that for us. What do you think you come up with all of that?
Oh, it was that way at one other time in our history too. When I first came here in the early 70s, we didn't house prisoners then. The sheriff took them to Kansas City. And we didn't actually have a jail facility. We had the real old jail, which is part of our courthouse now. I never saw it used as a jail. That was long before my time, but it was a jail there. But it's a problematic kind of thing. Some of that stuff comes from some state mandates too. The inmates are all eligible for dental and medical care and mental health care and all kinds of things just by virtue of being inmates too. And that kind of thing is pretty expensive.
Yeah,
It's pretty hard to handle.
So do you think maybe they've done a better job? It seems, I know it costs to do the stuff at Florence, but isn't it cheaper in the long run to just have them do that?
I'm thinking so. I feel as though I know we did have to provide separate facilities for women and men both for incarceration, and I did away with the women's part of it a long back. And at that time, they used that part of their facility for dispatch. And now we have our dispatch, which was very unfortunate. There's a lot of circumstances I don't know about, but it was unfortunate to see our dispatch go to Kansas City. Yeah. Because now all of our emergency services up there are dispatched from Canyon City. And if we didn't actually have someone working in the dispatch in Canyon that was from here, I think we would have had some life-threatening situations. I really do. Because they don't know their way around. I mean, you have all the aerial mapping and all the Google and all that to help them figure out where things are at, but directing people around is a very timely thing.
Right.
And well, I can't say that we've directly lost any lives due to it, but it certainly has made a difference to not have the dispatchers have knowledge working. And it was a shame to see that service go. That was one that I always saw was pretty effective here. When I first came here, there wasn't a dispatch. There was a CB radio in two people's places here. One lived up on the mountain at an elevation of about 10,000 feet. And the other one lived in Silver Cliff, and they were able to communicate. And she manned the radio as a volunteer for years and years, and called the sheriff by telephone, all hardline telephone. And someone reported something, and it came over the CB to the lady on the mountain. She related to Silver Cliff. And I mean, we've grown a lot since then.
Yeah.
And no electronic dispatch and all that. There's a lot of stories about how much we've changed, but we've always managed to offer the same services as you would get anywhere in the country, just at a different scale and maybe a different quality of service. But we've always had everything everybody else. You know, television, radio, whatever utilities came along, we had them.
Right.
And people that advocated for them and fought for them so we've got them, but we've had all a lot of conveniences for a long time.
Yeah, that's
And county government's a part of that.
right. Right. Yeah, well, yeah, somebody has to orchestrate it and manage the.
And there's a lot of services that are handled by the private sector.
Exactly.
And, that's a real positive thing. And the cooperation between the private sector and our local government's always been, above and beyond, compared to other places I've lived and seen and been aware of.
But what kid about the county clerk? What's their job?
Keep the records of the county. You can have any document, any kind of document. You can write a poem on a paper bag, take it in and have it recorded. They have to record anything that the public presents.
Oh.
And they keep the records, all the land records, all the birth and death records, all of the receipts, and the accounts payable by the county itself, all the tax records. There's a lot of historical information too. And they keep all of the plans for public improvements, all of that kind of stuff is recorded there. Okay, in the vault. So they keep everybody's paper.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize. I knew some of that, but I didn't realize it was that in depth.
Yeah, every transaction that you want to have the power of public knowledge. A deed, marriage license, agreement, a license of any sort. You can have, things are all recorded and kept track of there, and they handle elections.
So she's the election official as well. But very, very, very informative kid. I appreciate all that. What with the State of the Union and the financial responsibilities of the elected officials, what do you make of all of this? Can you kind of explain and give us a little bit of a history of kind of back when you kind of took care of stuff and it was a smaller amount versus now what they do to try to manage a larger amount of money? And do you think that they're maybe doing what they need to do, or should they maybe have a little more help doing that? Or
I don't know. There's an accountability issue for sure. And that's, the citizens have a responsibility as well. You have to participate.
Absolutely.
You have to be part of what's going on, and you have to make your voice heard. And you do that with your vote, and with your attendance at meetings, and in the volunteer capacity and things that need to be done. Everything, we're human beings, we lend complexity to everything we do. And the more complex it is, the more it generates record keeping and the more it costs to operate. Because with complexity comes, people want to fight about the result.
Right.
And so, you have to, the attorney's got to buy groceries too. So, they definitely want to keep things vague and difficult to understand. So we have to tax ourselves to figure it out. That's waxing and then I'm afraid that, no, that's good. Kind of like the moon coming on, but
Yeah, you're all right.
it's, there, it's more money. So of course there's more potential for misuse. The other part of it is that it's not like you and me, we want to go buy a new tractor, save up some dough, and you go do it. Or you go borrow the money and you figure out that you can afford the payments because the crop will take care of it, right? Government, when they want something, there's the grant process, which has always had pitfalls.
Please expound on the grant process. That's a very good inlet to this whole, we watch all this stuff going on and everybody says, well, we'll just get a grant. We'll get a grant. We'll get a grant. So please elaborate a little bit more exactly how that whole process is and what it's really about.
Well, there's a lot of different kinds of grants, but nothing's free. And the problem with the grant process is that a lot of it gets eaten up by administration and red tape and bureaucracy. And I've always thought that you had to look really hard at how the money flows. Is it going from the private sector to the public sector? Because if that's going on, then the private sector has an expectation of getting something for their money. So they grant you money, but do favors come with that? Do privileges come with that? Does access to government come with that? And when the public sector accepts that, are they making obligations for the next generation? Which they really are supposed to do because they're elected for a certain period. That's a big deal. If the money flows from a private to private, that's you and me shaking hands and me saying, I'm going to give you some money because I believe in what you're doing and I like it. And how you pay it back or if you pay it back is between you and me. Nobody else needs to. Right. That's private to private. If it's public to public, then public giver has a bureaucracy and a process and a series of red tape measures and layers of bureaucracy. So does the receiver. So the money's going to get watered down. It's going to get either bogged down in how it comes, or it's going to have strings attached to it, or there's going to be so much of it siphoned off on each end to feed those two bureaucracies that maybe it isn't a win-win situation. Maybe it isn't even a win on either side. The only people who win are the ones that process the deal. Well, if it's public to private, that's even more scary because then the public sector is picking winners and losers. You've got elected officials giving money to a private individual to accomplish something. So there has to be all kinds of checks and balances in that to make sure that they pick the right private sector person. So you're going to have a lot of potential for corruption. That's the way I see it. So grants have all these pitfalls connected with them. And the thing about them is it's our money. We pay the taxes to the federal government, and we go as elected officials with our hat in our hand and say, can we have some of it back, please?
But
maybe if we kept it in the first place.
Right. Well, and
absolutely.
How does it work where we pay our taxes? I mean, was the grant always a part of the process for the last 200 years or whatever? Or did it, when you think, well, I pay my taxes, then the government's going to.
See, I think grants came about because people wanted more than they could earn. They wanted, it's just like people who go get loans and don't pay them off. It's like you're getting your loan for your education and then the government is protecting you. They're paying it all. You might as well have not even gotten a loan.
Right.
So it's all in wanting more than you could afford. It's a scary thing when you think about that you're giving you your own money back. You know, that these people on these grant committees, they're not elected. We elect people to take care of our tax money. And we put our faith in them to wisely spend it, and if they don't, we unelect them the next year. These people that sit on grant committees aren't accountable to anyone. They're not elected, they're appointed. They're somebody's brother.
Yeah.
There's somebody who, I know a lot about that subject, so maybe I ought to sit on the grant committee for it. Are they accountable for their decisions? I don't think it's quite the same. They can't be unelected because they were never elected in the first.
Well, and that's something that I seen here with the Just Price Memorial Park. You know, I'm not dead set exactly of the numbers, but from my understanding, they said, oh, we got $100,000 grant. Well, it cost them another $400,000 to tear out all the grass and put in concrete. So our little park that was just fine, they spent $500,000 on it. And now, I mean, to me, it's worse than it was. I mean, I like green grass. If I wanted more concrete, I'd go to Denver.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much of a public process was involved in that. And I've maybe been around too long, but I remember where the park came from in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
One man built it. And he built it as a gift for the people of West.
Yeah.
And he didn't ask for a dime, and nobody paid a dime. He built it on his own because he felt like he was a little bit obsessed, maybe a little bit of OCD there, I don't know.
He's a good natured individual, though. He's a community person.
He worked his butt off and built that beautiful place and turned it over to the town. And it's a pretty prime piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Was that Weimar? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
It was John.
So we always called it Weimar. Weimar Park.
Yeah, originally that was what was going on.
Yeah, and then
And
I
then,
think when Jess Price passed as the mayor,
right,
John said, yeah, we can name it after him.
yeah.
That's the kind of feller he was.
Right, yeah, it was a definitely a positive thing, but
Yeah.
there wasn't any money borrowed, there wasn't any money granted. He did it because he wanted to, but I mean, it wasn't a matter of anybody looked at it and said, you can afford it. And I'm not so sure, that's the thing about grants is, the common phrase is, boy, if we don't take this grant, somebody else will get it. Maybe somebody else needs it more, I don't know, but that isn't the way to think about spending public funds.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to buy this because it's cheap. Well, if you don't need it, it doesn't matter how cheap it is. And to me, if you still have to, if they're only paying 20%, you got to come up with the other 80%. You better maybe really need that.
Yeah, and there's always an issue with that too. And that's the way the grant givers have of deciding just how serious you are about having something is you have a stake in it. You have to spend a certain amount and then they give you a certain amount. And that's not a totally unreasonable expectation.
No, it's not.
It's just that if you've ever been through the grant process, I did a few grants and made grant presentations when I was a commissioner. And there was a tremendous amount of competition. And there were people there that were getting municipal things that they had needed for many, many years. And growth came on them outside of their control, and they had to provide facilities. We got the same thing going on around now.
You're right.
It's outgrown the system. And, it's difficult to make all the people who've been paying for their service pick up the tab for all this expansion that needs to be done or upgrading. So you have to find ways to do it. And frankly, they've done a pretty good job. I think if they're holding it all together, we'll see what happens. There are some grants involved. The strings attached to the grants and the thresholds are constantly changing. That's the problem, is that the requirements become political, not practical. Somebody new gets in there and says, well, environmentally, we can't do that. That comes from another source. That's not. So, that's what happens with it. You look to do a civic project. It used to be, can we afford it? Or should we save up for a while and see if we can do it? Or,
Right.
can we go ahead and borrow the money? Can we make the payments? That's not the way that people like. But this grant idea, they just in it. And then you're putting communities in competition with each other as well. And that's not always a good thing.
No.
We used to have to compete for highway money. Still do, but we kind of figure, I was on the state committee with the highway, call it, every year you came up with a plan, that highway department came to you with various projects, people wanted to kind of decided this one, but we used to sit down and kind of, well, we won't ask for anything this year, because your project is, we've been waiting for years. So we defer, we're not gonna ask for anything, let them have the whole nut this year. No, the rest of the squirrels would lay back and let them do their thing. And that worked for me, but that takes some cooperation to come on.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's especially, it would seem that it would be harder and harder.
Oh, but now we're in a position to just, need money, just print it. That's not, that doesn't work.
No, that's not a good principle at all.
It makes it just like gold. You don't have it. I mean, if there's very little of it, then it's got a value. But if there's a lot of it, value it goes down to the dollar itself. It's shrinking. It's something we never thought we'd see.
No, and maybe a lot faster than what we want to admit to.
Because we're in a world situation. We're a global marketplace. I mean, we truly are living like it.
Right. No, I mean, the fact that we've been, the whole petrodollar and the terms that we made with Saudi Arabia, that they would sell oil in US dollars, just kind of kept us up on top. And then this new BRICS alliance, I don't know a whole lot about it. I don't know enough about it to know that there's a lot of countries that are upset with Americans because of the fact and the way that they print money. It devalues everybody else's economy as well.
Yeah. Yeah, everything used to be able to go anywhere in the world, and the US $20 bill was fine. And now it's going to be $100. Do the same thing. That's that's getting a little bit far beyond county questions. It's what's on all of our minds right now.
Well, and it's all interrelated because, I mean, that's one of the things that we pride ourselves here is education and how, I mean, we want everybody to know that that's kind of how it works. Right? I mean, we start here at our county level, but you can see how the plant grows up into this creature of what our whole world is. It's all intertwined and interwoven.
And it always has been. Down to Silver Cliff, just east of us here. Silver Cliff, right? I mean, it boomed. It grew from 9 city blocks to 160 city blocks in 4 months. Because of the boom, the silver. And it died just as quickly based on the world market for silver. Silver crashed in the world sense in 1884, 85. Silver Cliff was empty in a month.
Really? I guess I didn't realize that.
It was something outside of our control. And the miners were putting in just as many hours a day before as they had crashed.
Right.
It had nothing to do with their fault. It was the market that affected silver. So, we are all intertwined. We're getting that there. And people came here to get away from things too, Look at the folks that came here, originally, the original people that settled here, those were Civil War vets. Those were guys who were coming west and they were damaged. They had to find themselves a place that was quiet and that they wanted complete freedom. They had been under the thumb for a long time. Stuck their necks out as far as you can stick them. They came west to find a new life. And a lot of the people that started this community were that free. And, Vietnam did the same thing. The only new generation of people that came escaping, you know, what the war done to them.
Right.
And came here for that. Came here for freedom.
Well, and that's another thing we felt compelled to do the podcast was because, I mean, you know, freedom is dear to our hearts, but so many people don't respect what it is. I mean, it's such a complicated subject, but somebody that's young and woke and lives in the city, they don't understand that freedom came at the death of humanity. Citizens of this country gave their life for that person's freedom, but they don't have any concept,
They don't make a connection.
no connection.
You know, it shouldn't be that it's become kind of a trite phrase that freedom isn't free. But what's the currency? What's it paid for? Paid for blood. Paid for by people who make sacrifices to get there. That's what worries me about the American West. I mean, the Mountain West especially. I see the changes in the Mountain West. It's a lot easier to live here than it used to. It used to be a challenge day to day living. Right, and you got snowed in the winter time, and you know you have dryers and nothing to eat and nothing for the cattle. You were at the mercy of the environment. And now people move here and you know they heat their homes with solar and hot water, and they buy a tractor that they can operate, and they keep it open in the winter time. It's just not as hard as it was.
Right.
And you and I both knew people whose parents and grandparents had Indians camping on their hay meadows. I mean, that's how close we are to the difficulties that people went through. We know people who went through them. And I think we have whole generations of people growing up in the city that have no connection with that historical sacrifice, or just the difficulties of life itself. And that was pretty comfy. Pretty comfy. It's pretty damn comfy to come home to watch us on three handsome guys on the podcast, sit back with a cold one and have a good pizza that somebody brings to your house for you.
Right.
Oh man, I cooked my own tonight. Pretty good. Hey, sucks, man. Yeah. Hey, can't get anybody to bring it over. Yeah. Things are tough. Yeah. We gotta be smart about respecting where we came from.
Well, and some of
People
it's,
put us here.
yeah, absolutely, and that has to be, people really need to be reminded of that. Somewhere along the line.
We're so close to our history here. It's a young place in terms of people being here. And we still are a little bit in touch with that. You know, we still know people. Dad's even knows that. Yep. You know, they're losing our old timers pretty fast. That's what I worry about is that in the last 20 years, I see so many of them go that made it possible for me to be here. You know, did their thing. And, they're folks that the hard work. Like, take care of people who sit on hilltops here, beautiful homes, and look down at the valley forest, and gosh, what pristine beauty that is. Those hay meadows weren't there. Those were built by people.
Right.
They cleared that land, they picked the rocks off and cut the willows and rerouted the water and grow that beautiful green hay that you like to look at every day. That was somebody working. It wasn't just there.
I've done a lot of that.
Oh, man. You couldn't, I mean, I'm talking to somebody here that throw a lot of bales around, you know, it takes a lot to make things look like that.
Right.
And in the mountain backdrop that God gave us, you know, I mean, God framed the picture, didn't
He did. And beautiful.
we? have to appreciate both. But that's not anything at all about local government. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of what we're talking about, though, is preserving this area to a point where not all our values aren't just washed away. That Common Core was in the school system here for a bit. If that wasn't a cancer to our society, if that wasn't a systemic root poison that was allowed to come in here because of, you can't get this money unless you bow down and accept this curriculum. Now we're serving money instead of love, and that's the problem. We're way out. We're way out.
That's the screws attached that we were talking about.
Yeah,
This is the idea that you don't, you know, here you go, but we'll give you this, but you gotta have the, you take this with it. And
That's exactly what.
it's so tempting for humans to be that way.
And that's exactly what one of the measures is on the ballot this time around was if about the school funding, they think, well, that's great. The schools need more funding. Well, not if they're telling you that you gotta teach transvestite story time.
Yeah, I have two granddaughters who went through the school system. One of them will graduate next year. And, one of them's already graduated from university school, the other two are gonna be homeschooled. And, I do this thing with each one of them when they get to be 10 years old, we go climb around the mountain, which is, it's a tiny thing, but it's, and the only reason I do this is because I want to listen to them talk all the way up and all the way back. I want to hear what they think. And, each one of them is unique and different. But I'm real glad the two younger ones can be at homeschool. I really am. It's a huge burden. It's a hard thing for my son and daughter-in-law to deal with. But I'm glad it's happening. I'll help them where I can. But they're cracking the book. She knows more about Patrick Henry than she does about San Francisco government. And I'm tickled to death.
Yeah, right.
Because that's a part of history I wanted to know about.
Right. It's gonna go away.
We're going to lose it. We're going to lose the people that know about that. When I went to high school up here, there was a gentleman in the valley, little Chris, his family, they were all immigrants, European machinists and very, very accomplished technical people. And the only library in town was in the school. So he was always in there studying, reading, and he had a habit of kind of reading out loud. It was the way that he had learned, and it was, I'd go in and find study, I'd listen to him. And, whatever he was reading, he realized one day, he said, I do read out loud. This is a library, and I can do that. And I said, well, I'm learning a lot. You just keep right off doing it.
One of the first Audible books.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's fantastic, but that's it. We're kind of losing that. There isn't that connection that school kids have with elderly people in the community. And we're losing our elderly people pretty fast. It seems like there's are you seeing it, a big generation turnover here? Does it feel to you like that, or is it the way things are just going everywhere?
Well,
I just feel it more.
I think that it is the way that things are going everywhere, kid. I mean, I guess I can't say personally if I can see that happening or not, but I do. The disassociation with between individuals, like anymore, your cell phone is your best babysitter.
Yeah,
So, when the parents are busy, they say, well, here, watch this. And I mean, I get it. I understand the parameters of how that goes about, but yet you're programming your child to not understand that connection with humanity and that older group of people. And
I was at a public meeting, Westcliff Town Council. I'm easily entertained.
oh, yeah.
She's entertained. I'm easily entertained. So anyway, I was there for a purpose, but a woman had brought her children. We have them sitting in the back row, and they all have their tablets. And I just said, have your headphones in. Headphones that cover your ears kind of.
Yeah.
So they were picking up absolutely no stimulation from that. Nothing at all. Nothing. I mean, there was a day when, if I brought my kids or grandkids, they'd have been running down the aisles and disturbing things, but, these kids had no stimulation other than what they brought with them. I thought, that's bad. That's not a good thing at all. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to control it. Well, they're going to find it whether we give it to them or not.
The one thing that I've been going through, get this autonomy course, and because I struggle with that same thing, right? What are we supposed to do? Right? How do we make a legitimate change in someone's life? And Richard Grove, he says, it's one mind at a time.
Yeah. Yes.
And I get frustrated and worried and anxious about, everything is so bad. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do, right? And
It's a helpless feeling.
it is a helpless feeling, and the guy don't, but after learning, what he's saying is it's one mind at a time. You ain't gonna change the whole group of everybody at once. You have to pick somebody out that has some intellectual curiosity and begin to feed them this information to the point where they can kind of free themselves. It's all right that we just don't stay on county business.
But it all it's all relative.
They get say that only half of Americans are literate. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I think, and it's a definition of literacy. It was, the idea of absorbing information anymore isn't reading. It's little snippets of things. And it's the word. Somebody's doing something, go to YouTube. Somebody's telling you something. You're not reading. People don't want to read anything more than that much. They want to get it all by the stimulation of somebody telling them or acting it out. We were talking about this in curmudgeon class the other day. Curmudgeon class is just two old guys. You have two or more old guys.
Oh.
It's curmudgeon class.
I see.
And I don't know what they were teaching each other and the people around us. I try to make it a point to do some irritating and annoying thing to a young person at least once a day, just so they know when I'm right. I think it's important to do.
He's been talking to my dad.
Yeah, I learned everything I know from your dad. He annoyed me for a long time. On purpose too, I could tell. No, it's just how we're bombarded with information. There's no filter and there's no clearinghouse. It doesn't come and, okay, you're going to get this piece this week, or what do you like to watch? Make sure you get a whole bunch of it. They're doing that. I mean, by what you look at on YouTube,
Yeah.
or any of these other services, then it's tailor built. There's algorithms that pick that up and give you that back. It's almost scary to pick something to look at because I know I'm going to see something just like it tomorrow. Maybe I want to see something else tomorrow. So there's enough of these blogs and things that we can go on and look around. What you're doing is probably pretty valuable. I don't know how to start that. The thing is, when I go out there on the web, I don't know what to look for because there's so much. If I pick a subject that I want to be interested in, I still have to figure out a place to go and pursue that subject. It's going to get bent if it wants.
Well, and that's this class. That's a very good question, and I will pose this answer. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So I would think that history is something that we maybe need to know more about. And like some of the history that you have already shared with us this evening. I mean, people don't know about these guys. I mean, they just don't understand the way that history really was. And understanding how stuff really went down kind of gives you, if you don't know that, then if they try to put a bait and hook on you or a slip, you don't realize it because you don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah. The part of it is the instant nature of it. I mean, if they carry around all the knowledge in the world in their phone, it's all there. You find everything. But you don't really look for it. There's just a certain number of things that you do there. And it used to be that you had to work at you and seek it out. It's like phone calls now. I have people call me. I'm really bad about it. I don't check my phone line. Somebody, I don't call them, call them. Well, I've been waiting to have to hear from you. Whole hour, man. We're dead.
Like I got a landline.
Yeah.
You're going to wait on me. I'm busy working.
When I first came here, I was on an 8-party line.
Right.
And you only had one phone. It was in your house. We were raised like that. And, it was in one place in your house.
Yeah.
It was coordinated. And they were going that rotary dial thing. And when you talk to somebody, the courtesy was, you didn't call them before 7 o'clock in the morning or after 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I like that
That's,
rule.
that's the only time you could catch them because the rest of the time they were out working all day.
You're doing chores.
If you
By
wanted-
7, you're probably in the house.
If you wanted to see them, exactly. If you wanted to see them, you went and found them.
But we shared that
And you
common,
knew where they were gonna be, so you went and found them.
we had a common lifestyle.
Yeah.
We were all working. Typically, there was chores involved. You may have been milking the cow, or you may have been feeding the chickens or swapping the hogs. There was a lot of that. I mean, I was raised there.
Or going out in the woods or whatever, you know.
Or whatever it might have been.
But you had all day to think about what you were gonna talk to them about when you called them. You know, you didn't have this instant thing.
Well, in society wasn't so complicated that your conversation was gonna be, you know, so cluttered with jabber that we got now. It was pretty simple, you know, either somebody passed away or someone struck, we had to pull the motor on it. You know, or there's a Vader that's broke down and so-and-so's got hay that's gotta get put up. There wasn't any of this idle goopiness that we've got going on now. That is the environment that we're in, and it's been created and it's convenient.
It's also, strangely enough, we're all connected. We spend a lot of time close together, but it's pushing us farther apart. I go to a basketball game at the high school, and here's 10 kids sitting on the bench, all of them on the phone. Some of them are actually talking to each other or texting each other who's sitting next to them. I mean, I'll say, there's a thing on that phone where, you can push a button and then talk to them. Oh, no. I don't do that.
So here again, now we've got some social, cultural programming that's going on. And we're standing here watching it, and what do?
Did you feel like you almost at each other? You thought somebody's
I absolutely think, we're failing as parents, we're failing as uncles and brothers and whatever. But it's something that's been loosed. It's been unleashed on society, and the convenience and the pleasure of it is not going to be given up lightly.
No.
So the damage that it's doing, is probably going to be the downfall of humanity.
Well, the biggest widespread panic is going to occur in a cyber attack. And you can't get on there.
It's either that
They're not gonna bomb a city and kill a million people. They're just gonna turn off the and they'll kill each other.
incoming. Yeah, so, and as sad as that is,
Oh, it's we laugh, but I mean, that's really kind of where we're at.
the stage is set.
Yeah, I think so. In some ways I do too. I think the wrong malevolence can use all of these things.
The TV was created for education. That's why the TV was invented.
Or, of course, grandfather did the TV, that's right. He did the internet.
So at the end of the day, the television was a tool for education. To educate people.
Yeah.
And then that tool became perverted. Here again, it all got, we're in a battle, good and evil, light and dark, and the dark stuff is being carried through all of this technology. Every bit of it.
Oh, gee, what?
So the media is lying. I mean, most of the media is not. They're gonna tell the story that they want to portray, the narrative that they're going to establish for whatever vision they have for the planet.
There's a dark side to everything.
So, oh, absolutely, yin and yang things constant. But at the end of the day, we have to recognize that, and that's what we're doing. Once you stumble across, holy moly, this is a pretty bad situation we're finding ourselves in. What do you do?
And that's the helplessness of people you meet. I meet an awful lot of well-meaning, like-minded people. And this discussion is always the same. What do we do? What do we do?
No, and that's absolutely why we're here, sitting here right now.
We feel helpless about it.
Yeah, we want to be able to have some influence on the future of this, of our local government. And if everybody would do that, we could get a lot of things done. The phone and the culture that's evolved into what we've got right now is, I don't know how you solve that, okay?
No,
what I do understand
I think you have to get to it too.
is we do need to be fiscally responsible. We need to have a vision for our county and lead what we know is right. And do things, and that's kind of what we're here. We're hoping the school is gonna be upright and a little bit more, American. And not, and then the commissioners that get in power need to be more transparent. I think the accountability for the finances the last few years, it could be better and done better. And I don't know that it's a lack of knowledge, although sometimes it seems that way. But at the end of the day, do they even want it fixed? I mean, the double entry
book is a
bookkeeping.
matter of, haven't been there, haven't been.
Well, and that's why we're wanting to talk to you.
You spend an awful lot of your energy just doing that daily stuff, that you gotta pay the bills, you gotta listen to the insurance guy, you gotta have something to do with the auditor, you've gotta send somebody to go look at a new dump truck, there's that day-to-day little stuff. And it's like there's a lot of people when I was in that thought that, I had a background in land use, but you're gonna have a huge effect on the county because of land use. 5% of the county decisions are land use.
Absolutely.
The rest of it is all of that day-to-day stuff, and there's so many things that are already put in place. And then a lot of it is holding off. This is funny, when I first decided to run for county commissioner, I want to talk to some of the older ones, the guys that had already done.
Well, there you go.
Was one of them.
There you have it.
So I went, I sat down in John's kitchen and I said, I'm going to run for commissioner. And said, well, you fell and hit your head, didn't you?
Yeah, you
said, no,
fell off the haystack.
He said, you all right? And I said, well, no, I came here for some advice, John. What should I do? He said, all I can tell you is hold the bastards off as long as you can. And I said, I'm going to know who the bastards are. He said, well, I'm going to vote for you. You'll know who they are. And, it's been that, there was an adversarial. I told you before that the county government was an arm of state government. But over the years, it became adversarial because of the thing that I mentioned earlier too, was that we figured out how to solve our road problems. We dealt with sanitation and road building, and utility. We got television and radio for the community. Those kinds of things. We figured out how to do it without grants, without any state help. We couldn't even get any help from the state. They really didn't begin to pay attention to small communities like ours until they saw us as a revenue source.
There you go.
And then it was, we created a giant bureaucracy in Colorado Public Health and Environment. And they're not funded by the general fund anymore. They're funded by permits, fees, and licenses. So what are they going to do? You think they're going to want fewer permits, fees, and licenses? No. Yeah, every time you turn around, you've got a new fee to cover. And you're collecting it locally and sending it to the state. And then you get it back by applying for grants. So that's the money, like I said, the money comes from us. It flows that way. It was a really great story I read one time, and I can't remember whether it was Mark Twain or Oscar Wilde. I don't know why I get those two guys confused, but I do. But it was the idea that when you go pay your taxes, you go pay them at your local courthouse. And they take out what they need, and then they send the rest to the state. The state takes out what they need, and what's left over goes to the feds in Washington to protect us. So it's flowing the right direction instead of sending it all to the feds.
And then let it trickle back.
Down. That trickle down economics sounds really good when you're on the top of the pyramid. If you're the guy that's standing there trying to take a shower with no water, the trickle down is real important to you. I'm waxing a little bit philosophical again, but I see that as a real problem. Instead of the state and the feds being somebody that we looked up to for leadership and help or direction or education, it's become adversarial. The EPA has an office right across the street from Colorado Department of Health and Environment.
Yeah.
So they're kicking their ass, and then they're kicking ours. And we're sending money to them, and my privilege of getting our ass kicked.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Isn't that great?
I mean, that's how mad, that's absolutely how mad that is.
That's why the curmudgeon club sits around and talks. Yeah, What the hell are we gonna do?
Yeah, so we've got this environment now that we're in, and so how do we, and it's a pretty big undertaking. But to get back to those basics and to bring some of this government, because we don't need it. I mean, personally, I don't know that I need much of any of it. I know the military is essential, and I have no problem with that.
Used to be the mail, but now UPS does a better job. I don't care about the mail anymore either. No, that's true. You know, I mean, watch the borders,
So it's,
take care of the coastline.
yeah, so we need to get back fundamentally, just because we're gonna go through a monetary challenge here and being able to stretch the dollars and still get the very basics. Just the military protect secure the border, and there's probably a few other things that need to be taking place.
Oh, absolutely.
But we're gonna have to get streamlined. And the cutting, depends on who gets in there. Tuesday, Wednesday could be a very interesting day.
Yeah. I'm afraid they're gonna be telling us to tighten our belts and, I don't even live in the market.
Belts and
Let's go. It's a troublesome thing. And Jimmy, don't either one of us lose our sense of humor.
Amen. No, not gonna happen.
Gosh, we laugh at ourselves first and then at other people.
Yes.
You know, when you kick that crutch out from under that guy, he's laughing too. You know?
Exactly.
Or you don't do it. We have to be very careful about not losing our sense of humor.
Staying lighthearted in a very serious time, keeping a sound mind. That's the leadership I'm seeing on the other side of whatever's coming. But however this thing falls and we have to reinvent ourselves, we've got to be able to have that strong leadership and common sense on how to keep the boat afloat. And that's what counties are going to need. This, whoever's running the state, all of those governments are going to have to really look at it in a very serious light on how to get through.
It's stressful times too. Like, you go to a big construction site, and I've done that not too long back there. A big dam or a big building being built. And who's out there actually doing the work now? It's all the graveyard guy. Because they don't have the help with it.
No, you're preaching to the choir.
Well, no, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These are guys that have come out of the office and thought, I finally got myself in the office. And now to keep their companies afloat, they're out there running the skid loader and the backhoe down and, laying the pipe and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing but those are going to be the people that make it work.
Yeah.
They're going to climb down off of that machine and they're going to, brush their hands off and they're going to go sit in the commissioner's seat, or they're going to go to that meeting that decides where the funds come from, or they're going to tell the people from the state to go back home, compensate them, or whatever, that it will come to that. I'm pretty strongly believe in that. Now, Mr. Trump may be able to do a lot of work next Wednesday, and Thursday's going to be a real busy day for that guy. But he has too much to do. And we'll have to do something.
Yeah, we the people, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is get the men to stand up. The American men have to stand up and take leadership. And if there's something that's going awry in your community, it's really up to the men to stand up and say, wait a minute, this is probably not sound reasoning here. What we're doing here is slow barking nougat. And we need to have it straightened out. And that's where sound mind and practical reasoning and doing things logically and being fiscally responsible, not just winging it. And that's what we've had going on.
And I think you'll find that some of those men that need to stand up and do that stuff are actually women. I think we have a lot of leadership in local anyway. Sure, there isn't a whole lot of testosterone floating around in the halls of the court. Work's getting done by those ladies who have taken on those tasks as well.
No, and I'm not.
I know you.
Yeah,
you want to see a misogynist.
No, and not even a little bit, because we got to appreciate what we do have. What we do have. We absolutely got to do that.
Well, we're going to have to realize that we're not going to have those strict lines between a man's job and a woman's job. There's just going to be the job of
The job. American patriots
the jobs.
that have love for their country. We don't want to lose the republic.
Correct.
We're gonna have to come and say, look, I'm gonna get involved. I'm gonna be involved. I'm gonna inspire and encourage us to go down this right path. Not, we could be faced with no currency, a cashless society. We could be faced with all kinds of things that are biblical.
Good thing we learned how to barter up here.
So that's
No barter here.
right. So the parallel economies, and the unity that's been formed just because of these challenges, I know here, it is remarkable. I mean, somebody's got a milk cow, somebody's got chickens, somebody's got the hay.
Yeah, the work's getting done. I think we may end up teaching a lot of other people how to work. You drive to Denver, I mean, that was always my big, and that's a good thing, the Fairfield County government to go to Denver, because you go up there and find out you have a little bit of a voice, and you get to see how things work or don't work up there. But you drive in the south end of Denver, you look at all those high-rise buildings, you wonder what those people are doing in those buildings, because they're not making anything. They're not showing anybody else how to make anything. They're shuffling paper and microbits between each other all day long. And at the other end, there isn't any sausage, there isn't any gasoline, there isn't a widget, there isn't a hairbrush, nothing comes out of that.
No lumber.
No. And it's, all of those people are just as much citizens in this country as we are. What are we gonna do with them? How are we gonna help them? And how are they gonna help us? Are they gonna find a slot somewhere, a spot where they are productive and good for their fellow men? That is a worry that I have.
Well,
Because they're no less important than we are as far as human beings go.
I think a guy has to learn some of the stuff I've been learning. I think a lot of that comes to people have to determine that lack within their self. They have to say
They need some self-worth.
they need some self-worth and I mean, it's totally controversial now, just like the dock workers. Right, we're gonna strike because we need more money, but we're also striking because we don't want automation, because we want our jobs. Well, let's go back down to efficiency. The goods need to get unloaded off the ship, but you don't want to really do it in a timely fashion, but you think you need more money to do it. So how long is that sustainable? How long before machinery, and that's that mindset that I'm talking about, right? People have to determine for themselves and say, hey, look, I need to be more productive here, or what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be replaced. And you are. I just was watching that thing last night on AI. And
Jobs, that's good.
yeah, well, and
Even out of the sniper community.
yeah, I was watching
Coders.
right there. I'm watching this AI program that you can download for free. It will answer your email and respond back and do all the stuff that quicker than what a human can do. So now the people that are in these big office buildings that were doing their emails and doing this paper shuffling back and forth, now
They didn't either.
it won't be long where they won't need them either.
Well, and that was a question Victor Davis Hanson
Oh, yes.
answered a while back.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And he didn't have an answer. It was bothering him too. And that was the fact that how many people actually work for the federal government.
Oh, no, it's mind-boggling.
And you think about the idea that, well, Coach says, well, I'm going to drain this swamp and get rid of the bureaucracy. And then somebody goes, hey, wait a minute, Uncle Billy's a bureaucrat. We don't want him to lose his job. 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 or something like that. It directly gets their right from the federal government. Now they suddenly don't have a job. I'm going to be amazed at the fact that Trump gets voted in. Because he's all about
And
that stuff.
so we also have that same thing going on here in good old Custer County.
Sure.
We have
There's some
the county employees. Well, I have a different take on a lot of stuff. That's why I'm a little bit passionate about stuff. And it may not be exactly right, but I've got pretty good intuition on how politicians are maybe always looking out for their political career and trying to maybe get a foot up and making sure that, 'cause there's a lot of people work for the county here, right? I mean, do we know how many?
Oh, it's
100?
80 something last time I thought I heard that, but I don't know.
The largest employer, I think, is still the school. It was like 105, I think, the rest. I didn't take that picture thing, it was in the paper. I quit doing that because they didn't bring the lens, but they had them all in there.
So what,
5 years ago.
so what's the population, just so people can kind of compare our conversations to maybe their Red County, because a lot of Red counties are small.
About 4,700.
Yep,
About 4,700.
I think I looked it up the other day, from 45 and.
So at the end of the day,
47.
when you look at there's 100 employees in the county, that's a pretty big voting block. Because what I'm saying is the same thing you were just saying. I'm just saying it on a smaller scale.
All the same thing, so
So when somebody's sitting there and they're not maybe, to me, I think things could be handled a lot better in with the commissioners and in how they run the public's business. But that's a big voting block. You don't want to jack up that voting block. If you do something that disrupts that employment there, those employees and all their families are voting, and then their friends of those people, that's a big voting block. And then if you go to the towns, you're the county commissioner, but you're very active in both towns, and you're sitting there playing tap dance there.
yeah, those are been paid, you know.
So here again, that's a whole nother, and you turn into a politician as opposed to a statesman. And to me, that is where we're failing. We're more concerned about keeping our political position on our job as opposed to serving the constituents.
And I think that's where the term limit issue is so important. Because if you're, if you know you've got a limit to your job, there's an end to it, you play a lot less politics. I think that, the two words career and politician
Boy,
should never go together.
you're the only other person I've ever heard on the planet that's ever said that, because that's come right at me. I was like, what are you talking about? Your political career? Stop that, because you're irritating me now. So you're supposed to go do your service as a servant and get back to the plow.
Yeah, well, and then,
And
that was the idea, that was the concept.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the trouble with it, the thing is, the people that would actually vote to limit those terms are those people.
There you go.
So,
So they're not going to limit their own.
yeah, and I said, well, we need to get Congress to pass terms, well, they're not gonna. It needs to be on in a referendum. It has to be done, we did it in Custer County. It was, we limited it to 2 terms for commission. Right, you can sit out for 1 and then go in and do it again.
Right. But you could still only do 2 terms.
Right, and you do the 2. And there was a point when that was on the ballot. And we voted to limit the term. We didn't limit it for sheriff.
Right.
We didn't limit it for assessor or the only limitation was on the commissioners themselves. And they, it was voted on the ballot. That when it first came about. And they had it on the ballot for everybody. They had it on the ballot to do away with the coroner and the county survey on the statewide ballot. And that was about 16 years ago. Trying to get the exact date, but it seems to me like that was right around 2003, 2004. And it got voted down. It was brought up as a referendum on the ballot. But you're not going to get the politicians themselves to do it. That's the problem. And that would really take care of that. Gosh, I got to watch out for the next election because there won't be a next election for you.
So I just see it now, and especially with the division and different viewpoints on.
It might be time to bring that up. as a referendum.
So that's what I'm saying, that leadership on the other side of whatever Wednesday turns out to be, I'm just saying, however, the future, you have the grandchildren.
Yeah, those leaders have to carry that. on.
We have children and we have the future. And we need to be thinking about them children. And this AI stuff and the phone and all the sterilization of society that's taking place, it's just making them sterile. It's, I don't know how you get past that. That's my biggest challenge is how do you get past that? And you almost hope that the grid would go down, that thing would go away and we'd have to get back to 1880 and maybe that would help us. But there again,
And part of that is a legal thing too. Ask any attorney what their job is, and they'll tell you that their job is to limit or eliminate risk for their client. When you take the risk out of life, you take the spice out of it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, if there's no risk in doing things, sometimes it's the not worth doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Eliminate risk, and that's how they function. So that mentality is trickled down into every part of our life. The government wants to make sure that you are protected from cradle to grave.
Yes.
There's no,
You're playing God.
if you're not going to take any risks, there's not going to be any innovation,
Absolutely.
no inventions.
But to give the government all of our income and all of it, give that to them and then it filters back and it's so watered down. And then they have an agenda that says, well, we're going to give you this money back.
That exact agenda is Agenda 2030, where you'll own nothing and be happy.
And part of that is our expectation that the government's going to take care of all of our problems.
Yeah, and I see, I guess that's bullshit.
The
I
thing
just call bullshit.
Who's to limit?
Well, so exactly. I mean, the thing that they're saying that they think is going to work, and these people are biting it, they're saying, oh man, that sounds good. I know people that have drank the Kool-Aid. But I mean, the whole picture down.
It's so camouflaged. My dad has been telling me for a long time, he says socialism. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't arguing with him, but it just wasn't sinking in. It didn't mean anything. And I mean, he's been telling me that for 30, 40 years, right? He's like, socialism. And I'm like, okay. I didn't understand, but now I do.
Well, and maybe we need to be threatened once in a while too. The Constitution was written under duress. They wrote that Constitution, and the idea was to protect the people from government.
Well, and that's
They
the
had just been lived under an oppressive.
right. It wouldn't.
And now government has grown so big,
Right.
and everybody's looking to the government to protect us from ourselves.
So here again, we brought.
We'll buy a wood chipper.
Yeah, we'll get a wood chipper. Oh boy. Yeah. Anyways, it's an whole other topic. At the end of the day, we're recognizing the systemic problems that we have here,
Yeah.
and how the big government is absolutely it's contaminated,
And we're a part of it too.
and we're allowing it.
Yeah, we're tolerating it or we're part of it. One or the other. I think there's a good segment of people that are actually part of it because they work for it and they don't connect what they do with the consequences of what happens from.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the guy that goes to work at the BLM every day and tells a logger how to log, and he doesn't know how to log. He knows in his mind that that's not the right thing to be doing.
Yeah.
But the paycheck is there. The education set in that direction, go do that. He's not a bad guy. He'd probably rather be a logger. You meet all those guys that are regulators for somebody and they admire and, aspire to be the guy that they're regulating. You meet most of those guys, they know as much about your job as you do. They just don't do it.
Well, it's the person that invests in creating a business, that takes the risk, that creates the profit, that gets the taxes, that creates the taxes.
Yeah.
And you're going to get more out here pretty soon. When 60% of your money that you earn, that you created, you pulled out of the forest, or you pulled out of the hayfield, or you created livestock and beef or pork or chicken, whatever that you create, You actually prompted it. Yeah, you created it. It was the top 7 inches of the planet.
And you gave it away.
You know, so, but that oppression is why this country was formed, was independent people they said, no, we've had enough.
And now that people are seeing that direct correlation between I take 30% of what I make and I give it to you so that you can keep me from making it.
Well, no, you build your own truck.
Yeah,
We're sitting there supporting somebody, we're paying somebody to build us
and
a
take
truck.
away from
That's how, and that's how I believe our forefathers were feeling. It was like, we don't need big government. We're self-governing.
Mhm.
We know how to do this. But I think we had a little bit more of God and morality, and I think there's a little bit more salt instead of this dog eat dog and lawyers and insurance companies. I mean, lawyers created insurance companies. So they had somebody to sue that had money. I mean, this whole thing is, there's a lot of work to
And they live
correct
off
it.
of the bad way we treat each other.
Yeah, and I think about the third, yes, exactly. The environment that's created to cause the animosity between people, that causes greed or need, whatever it might be, it causes bad behavior. And then now you've got court system and more deputies and It just keeps snowballing. The further we get away from the good behavior that comes from self-control and being able to conduct yourself in a loving, kind way where you're productive and you're not hurting anybody, but you're actually giving. When you choose to give your money to the widow and the orphan,
Right.
as opposed to, I'm not going to elaborate on, where the other money goes.
They'll do more than if the government was.
So if the government was out of it, and that's kind of where I'm at with our local government. I wanted to see us,
No, it needs to be accountable
well,
in every way.
our insurance has gone up on our properties. Our taxes gone up just because of the inflation and the valuations. That's a taxation.
Mhm.
And I moved here because it was a predominantly Christian Republican neighborhood and it was open and it was clean. And I thought it was a miracle. I'm like, wow, found a place. I didn't have to go too far. You know, I came from Denver and it was huge, but I was raised on the dirt in California. I was a farm kid and grew up building houses and la-di-da-di-da. And to find this place was absolutely, did my soul so much good. It
Well,
was,
balancing the budget was always that. We took it on I mean, it's required by statute. In Colorado, you have to balance your budget.
well, that's what I thought.
You know,
And it's a statute. It's a law. You're required
It's not just it's not just at the county level, it's at the state level too.
Well, absolutely. It's accountability.
But do you know how they're dealing with all of this? That's when we were talking about grants, that's part of it too. Because grant income sits in a different spot than this. You know, you account for it in a different way.
So,
It's over a longer period of time. And, you know, there's also statutes that say you cannot obligate beyond the term.
your term is, yeah, absolutely.
And which keeps you out of debt as well as balancing the budget. And then those are all things that frankly, I haven't kept close track of them since I left there. I don't know, but it looks to me like they're getting around someone who's saying, I don't know.
So the land that was bought for the Justice Center would definitely be a red flag. In my, how I watched that.
It's a long-term obligation.
But here, and this is one of the big things I think that we've been dealing with is, and you kind of hit on it. The complexity of the bookkeeping that takes place now in running the county finance. Did you guys have double entry bookkeeping? Did you have a computer system that somebody had to administer and it balanced out? Or did you it was just a simple ledger of bookkeeping? It wasn't real complex. You didn't have to do all the depreciations or track all the grants.
Part of it is you don't know what you're going to pay to. You have a certain amount of it that you do know, which is looking at what you got in last year.
Absolutely. I mean, you definitely have a reference point. You got a starting point.
I mean, and you know, that's always what you start out to work towards.
Sure.
And then you look at your whole budget. Everybody puts in their requests for their things, and then you the trim because everybody does it. It's just smart. Ask for more than you're going to get.
Sure.
And then negotiate it out.
Sure.
And so that's what we've always done is you bring it back.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you've got this number. You know,
That's a common sense approach.
if you have more at the end of if at the end of the year you save some money, then you can carry that over, a certain amount. You try to keep those two things as close as you can because you need to be taking the tax money that you take right now, you need to spend on the people that gain. So this next year, you spend that money on them. It's not the idea of government to have a big bank account and a big cushion. So you spend what you got on the services you get.
To a certain point.
Yeah, well, you know, you have, there
A
are
rainy day, a rainy
things
day
that you
fund.
can save for, or you know, we know we're gonna have this expenditure, this is gonna break down soon.
Right.
So we'll keep, you know, we'll budget a little bit more, not spend it, build it up, you know, it was a while. The idea that you're in it to make money is not what government does.
No, but to spend it wisely. To spend it
The
wisely.
difference between us and the feds is that the feds can print something.
Oh, we're absolutely. Yeah.
We can't do that.
No, we can't.
When we want some more, we don't just go down, you know, I mean, it'd be nice. Maybe that's what, you know, Jethro appeared at the tribune ought to be doing. It's pretty good.
Yes, you have credit for us, huh?
That's what we ought to do. We'd want to come up with our own script here for Custer County.
So
Usable only within the borders of the county.
oh no, I already talked about Custer County bucks. I talked to Jeff Goldberg. I said, hey, you're the printer, dude. Let's spin it up.
Whose picture to put on them would be the only thing we'd have to fight about. The rest of it would be all pretty smooth. Yeah, it's it.
And I think our forefather said that when you see this day happening, we broke you down in districts. Print your own script. And buy, sell, and trade amongst yourselves until you can regain the bedroom. All the provisions in the foresight of human nature was predicted on how the government was formed where they left. And they seen how it got contaminated. So they put safeguards and control joints in the Constitution, and that's why it is the way it is.
It was all about.
Absolutely, that's absolutely, there's a standard.
Yeah, you had to have a.
But we've got,
baseline.
right. I just think we've gotten off to the,
Yeah, it's,
the point of our local government being responsible. And that bookkeeping thing, I really didn't get a straight answer. Did you guys have the double entry bookkeeping in a computer system?
I don't know what you mean about double entry. I mean, we were keeping track of the bills every month as opposed to the revenues. We
Understood.
always knew exactly where we were.
And who was in there? Who was the finance person?
Donna Hummer
Yeah, so here again,
and John Paquette.
in John
John
Paquette.
Paquette was what you called, you had to have an official person that was he had a title of Chief Finance Officer. She was like the HR finance sort of thing. Sure, her job we didn't create it when I was first a commissioner. That was all, the vouchers were all handled in the clerk's office. And then John Paquette did our budget. And John was the chief financial officer responsible for certifying the budget. You had to have a person.
It was just a person only name.
But of course, he went through the whole budget process. But he's the one that said, okay, you're 10% over, go find it. Go wrestle through it all. And then you went to everybody, every department in, and you said, you gotta cut 10%. You gotta find it. And that's what they say when you hold the purse string.
So there again, it wasn't really complex double entry bookkeeping that is really a complex situation where you actually do need, you know, a person that has 10, 12 years of experience.
Well, you always need
And-
one around.
Oh, no, because,
I mean, you was- and
so
that was
Kim,
the person that-
what I call was, yeah, and that was kind of cowboy method. We kind of cowboyed it, and it all worked because it balanced. And it
Yeah,
did.
balance it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got into this double entry, the software. I don't know if you know about
Well, I did what it did.
So anyways,
What's happened.
yeah, so that's where we graduated to, and that was the issue I think that I had with what was going on in the county was the accountability. And throwing out credit cards, the lights almost got shut off. They couldn't get the machine to spit out a check. There was a lot of goofy going on.
There was only like 2 credit cards, and if you went somewhere, you checked it out like a library book. And you got the receipts from it, and you gave it back to Donna. And then if somebody else was taking the trip, you got to take the car.
Right.
And if you were a bad boy, didn't bring back all your receipts, you didn't get the car next time. I mean, it was just.
So here again, we didn't have any receipts. There was a little.
Receipts for.
Yeah, so you're held to a higher standard when you're managing the public's money. And it's required, it's a statute, and that you have to be accountable.
Well, then you have to, it has to be, but you have to be able to show that at the end of the year.
Right.
And that's what you certify with the state. Now, who the state certifies to, I've never figured that one out, but they're supposed to do it too. The statute says the state is responsible for having accountability.
Sure.
I don't know who they turn it into.
I don't know either.
Since the feds don't have to.
So there again, that's another
Who do you
issue.
hand it to?
Yeah, that's another issue. I'm just concerned about what's going on here locally. And they're not having high taxes.
That's why when I was at that meeting, the central committee meeting, and the gentleman, Mr. Rigo, asked me what I was going to do about the national deficit, I didn't have an answer for him. Because I don't have anything to do with the national.
I'm gonna do the same thing you're gonna do. You're gonna look at it and watch it go.
All you have to do is take care, well, you have some.
That's what I'm saying. Act locally and to be personally responsible
Yeah.
for where you're at.
Be in your business, if you're in your home.
Yeah.
If you're not, that's, I asked if, we got a federal grant one time while I was a commissioner. And I said, so how's it go? Do you bring a bag of money in, or do you write us a check, or what happens? We qualified for this grant. We get the money. Where do you put it? Put it in our account. How's it go? He said, well, you get a check on the U.S. Treasury. And I said, well, you're in debts. And I said, yeah. And I said, well, then that would be a hot check, wouldn't it? And he looks at me and I said, if I write a hot check, I go to jail. If you guys write a hot check, who goes to jail? Would we be participating in a criminal act if I accept those ill-gotten gains in the form of a hot check that I know is a hot check? He said, well, I don't think they can come after you. I said, can they come after you? He said, no, I'm a federal employee.
So there again, it's unearned money.
It's a whole different situation.
It is, and the monetary system that we're into, it's a whole different language and what was going on with all the grants and tracking. And it's not somebody that can come out of Hunger Buster and jump up in there and go, yeah, I got this. So
And that's really the sad part of it. It should be that simple.
it could have been if it was done correctly, but we couldn't even get, anyways, but I'm digressing down that road a little bit, but it's definitely a topic of how the accounting has evolved or devolved over there since you left.
Well, it's, I mean, I think that the principles are all the same.
Oh, no, they haven't changed. No, the truth, the balancing is
to be there.
right.
Yeah. And I don't know where it fell down. I wish I could tell you. I wish I knew more about it. I wish I knew where it fell down.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy around here to actually boil everything down to a person because there's a few of us.
Well, I think what it really came down to, and I could get personal about some of that stuff, but I'm not going to, it's kind of petty. Just kind of look at the situation, explain it. But I think when COVID came to town, and
There was a bunch of free money.
so God only knows what took place. And I'm going to these commissioner meetings and I'm listening to them. Well, so-and-so's essential. They need a little bit more money. And so-and-so, we need 1,000 body bags. I mean, there's some bars bought completely off the wall. I'm sitting there going, holy moly, who is running the public affairs here? These people are a little bit, so, and it is a red county. We're in a blue state and we're in a blue country the way it is right now. Blue nation. It's the way it is. But how do we get physically up in fiscal responsibility here and now? How does that happen?
Well, there were those that talk about some well-placed explosives on the hard script. And down the Texas Creek, I'll shut it off. I mean, maybe we would do better if we were alone.
Well, I'm thinking.
You know, it's funny how these things,
How we evolve, because we are that kind of thinking people.
but we have to have a port. We don't have access to the ocean. Without that, I'm afraid that we have to establish commerce with other nations.
So we do have we got an airport. We can land, we can And we'd be right back here in minutes. We go all the way down to Louisiana, and we get down to Louisiana in an hour and a half. But anyways.
I now remember what this tasting table is for.
Exactly.
Let's, everybody gets after his kid for running too long, so we try not to make it.
That's all, fair enough. I appreciate being here.
Already been about, already got about an hour and a half here.
Good.
Do you have anything else, I mean, is, in our closing statements here, what sound advice can we give the patriots of our county and of our state and our country? I mean, what can we do to try to maintain the integrity and make it a better place?
I think we need to learn. There's a lot of folks here who are, I don't know, there's so many nasty terms, but newcomers, let's say. And I really believe that during COVID and slightly before and since, that the folks that came here weren't running to something and running away from something. And they owe it to those of us who are here to learn our history, to respect it, and to benefit from people who made this a nice place to come to. I heard a lot of people, when I was in government, talk about, boy, we've got to sit down and do some planning and make sure we protect this place. Because it's so wonderful. And I would say, well, why do you think it's wonderful? Don't you think somebody was doing some of that before you got here, right? Or would you be as nice as it is? Try to respect what you came to and perpetuate the gift that we begin. That's what I look for, to show respect for the place. And in doing that, they earn the respect of those who are there.
Makes a lot of sense. Kit, thank you.
Thank you.
Good, appreciate you.
That's all.
You know that, Jeff. Oh, I do. I poured concrete yesterday.
I guess that's cut, buddy.